Hey everybody, welcome back. I am your host, Joe, JDF Foster, and today's video is going to be the top 10 Christmas movies. Again, this is all an opinion, so keep that in mind if mine disagree from yours. And I'll also be, again, including facts or interesting trivia pieces that were thrown in that I could find. Okay, first off, what makes a Christmas movie a Christmas movie? To me, a Christmas movie is something that helps raise your spirits for the season, or it involves what's referred to as the holiday spirit in some way, such as the references towards the importance of family, friends, and other traditional holiday spirits, but mainly how family and tradition matter to each other. An example of movies I don't think count for um, Christmas are Die Hard and Die Hard 2. Yes, these movies take place at Christmas, but that doesn't make them a Christmas movie. John McClane, played by Bruce Willis in these movies, is not trying to do something for the holiday spirit. What he's actually doing is an action film that's played on Christmas. It's to be like saying Practical Magic is a Halloween movie, or that some movie that takes place during Easter is an Easter movie. Hop is a good example of an Easter film, as it's about family and it's about the Easter, about the idea of the Easter Bunny and the spirit that has to do with Easter. Die Hard and Die Hard 2 are both about terrorists taking action points. One takes in Die Hard, the original, they take a tower in Los Angeles hostage. In the second one, they take a plane hostage. They take an airport hostage in Washington, D.C. on Christmas, while a plane is stuck circling the sky. This in no way has anything to do with the Christmas spirit or the idea of Christmas. It just happened to take place on those days, which is why Die Hard 3, or Die Hard with a Vengeance, was so much better as a movie, because even with the inclusion of Samuel L. Jackson, it drove away from the Christmas idea and just had it be what it was, an action flick, which made it better. Now, I'm going to warn you now, movies that didn't make my Christmas list for the top 10 that I did consider, though, were How the Grinch Stole Christmas and A Christmas Carol, both starring Jim Carrey. Christmas Cupid, which starred Ashley Benson and Christina Milian, which I highly recommend. Along with, well, that one I highly recommend for like TV specials that were done, because that one's actually really good. It's basically A Christmas Carol and Valentine's Day story combined into one. Same as the 12 Dates of Christmas, which is basically Groundhog Day taking place on Christmas, on the Christmas season. But they both play into the Christmas ideas and traditions, beliefs, so they actually fit into the category. But they just didn't happen to make the list. Also on this list that didn't make it were Gremlins, the original, which actually did take place at Christmas, and though most of listed as, and even me, listed as a horror comedy movie, it actually does focus on family and caring about one another and showing how things can go wrong off of that when you actually watch the movie. So it falls into the Christmas tradition as well. And the last one that didn't make the list, which is a fan favorite for the holidays, the original Home Alone. Home Alone 2 would not have made it because all it was basically was just a horrible knockoff of Home Alone in itself, just set in New York rather than being at the house. But the original Home Alone showed the spirit of Christmas and how important it also shows what happens with the be careful what you wish for and how it matters, and how much you miss something when it's gone. Is why it would have made the list. Is why I wanted to add to the list, but it didn't make the list. Now, let's get on to my top 10. Number 10, from 1946, It's a Wonderful Life starring James Stewart. This one is about a guy who wishes he was never born and gets to see what his life would be like and what life would have been like without him. While it seems some things are better than others, he sees how important his role in life was to this town and comes to see why why him being alive is important and how much he means to people, even if it doesn't seem like it. And I put it at number 10 because while I do like this film, it isn't high on my list because it seemed kind of long-winded at the time when I saw it as a kid, and as I got older, I do respect it for what it taught and the way it was done and how it drew the film out, but it's still too drawn out for me, so that's why it starts at number 10. Some interesting facts about this, or interesting notes about this movie. Number 1 on the list, the director, Frank Capra, often stated this was his favorite film of any film he directed. Also, something I didn't know when I looked it up to try and find these notes, when this film initially came out, though it's become a beloved film of all time, especially around Christmas, this film was actually a flop in the theaters. While it cost $3.7 to make, it only made $3.3, so while it wasn't a big flop, which to me seems about right, it turns out that the reason why this film was a flop is that there was another film that came out during this time that was really popular that it was competing against, and that's the reason why. But after a while, it actually became beloved. I looked this up the other day, and I don't even know what the other film was. Haven't seen it. Number 3 on my list, prior to this film, any movies that use snowflakes or snow were using cornflakes to make the image of this. To give that image because of how it looked on the screen. But due to the loudness of the crunching when the actors would step on it, the dialogue had to be dubbed in later. Well, Capra came up with an idea for how to fix this because he wanted to do the film without having to go back and dub in the dialogue later to show, because it was so important to the movie. So him and the group came up with a mixture to try. They took fomite, which is a firefighting chemical, along with soap and water, pumped it through a high-powered wind machine in order to create the effect of snow that we see in the movie as it's falling or as it's laying on the ground. What I found even more interesting is that they actually got an award from what would have been the Academy Awards that year for the development of the snow, for a Class 3 scientific or technical award, is how it's referred to at the time, for the development of this new snow. In 2006, the American Film Institute voted this as the most inspirational movie of all time. Actress Donna Reed, this was her first starring role in a movie. And in the movie, George, played by James Stewart, wants to go to college to learn how to build things. The actor portraying James Stewart actually majored in architecture at Princeton. I had a question about whether this was actually something they put into the story with James Stewart in mind, as it could be a reference to him, or if it was just by coincidence that this actually happened. Also, this one, though, is a rumor, as I can only find it in one place, and I haven't done the count myself. But if what Clarence says in the movie, which is that every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings, if what this person stated was true, then 42 angels would have gotten their wings in the movie. Just in this movie alone. Number 9, from 1947, The Miracle on 34th Street, starring John Payne, Maureen O'Hara, and Natalie Wood. Now, yes, this movie's been remade at least once, with starring the girl who played in Matilda. I'm not sure if there's been other ones that were made, but I do know that that one was made. And I still prefer this one over it because this one does better with the story and the acting is more realistic in my view. Also, with my films that I'm putting on this list, I tried to keep it to one from each of the film areas. Like Miracle on 34th Street, I picked the 1947 one because I prefer it over the one that started the girl from Matilda. Well, The Grinch didn't make the list because, yes, The Grinch is on my list, and you'll see it and hear the things I found about it. But that's the reason. But I tried to limit to stuff where it's one of those. And the Benedict Cumberbatch is not on my list because I cannot stand that movie. I'm sorry. There will probably be people that loved it and thought it was great. But the 2018 Grinch was not for me. I didn't like it. I couldn't get into it. And the movie seemed more drawn out for that reason. And it bored me for that reason alone. So that's why it will not be on my list. But anyways, with Miracle on 34th Street from 1947, this one's about a girl who runs into this mall Santa at a department store. Well, sorry, I got a little dust stuck in my nose and it's not wanting to let me sneeze. Anyways, with this movie, the idea is this guy's actually put on trial because he honestly believes he's Santa Claus, and everybody's telling this little girl and him that he can't be Santa because Santa doesn't exist. This is later actually mimicked when, if you watch Disney's The Santa Claus with Tim Allen, when they're trying to make Tim Allen believe he isn't Santa in the movie as well. They do a similar thing. Only difference is, this one actually went to a real trial where they tested, like, what's his name? Kris Kringle, Santa Claus. And it's basically the town trying to prove the spirit of this child wrong. And the movie, while it still shows how much family is important in things, it also shows how much a child's belief is important. And how we can believe, how a person's belief in anything can actually be proven real and tested. And which actually was one of the things this film actually got to me about, because what it did, putting a child's belief on a test, where they were telling her that this guy couldn't be Santa, and she believed he was, and he believed he was. How do you prove it? How do you prove he isn't? But the child's belief also is a similar aspect you see in the book and in the 1980s something movie, The Neverending Story, where it's about the power of a child's belief and how when children grow up, they lose that ability to believe or have their imagination robbed of them because time changes them. And because of that, this mystical land Fantasia was falling apart due to the nothing taking over. The nothing is what replaces the belief. And the more of the nothing that exists, the less imagination, the less creativity, the less imagination can run, and beliefs can exist because of this. Because a belief isn't something physical that you can see or hold. It's something you hold in your heart or on your in your, it's a feeling you have. And this movie and The Neverending Story both show how important these are. But anyways, back to my facts on 1947's Miracle on 34th Street. Sorry I got off on that little tangent. According to Natalie Wood's biographer, she honestly believed that the actor playing Santa was Santa in this movie and was good during the whole production. It wasn't until they did the wrap party and she saw him out of costume, she didn't realize, it wasn't until she saw him out of costume at the wrap party that she realized he wasn't Santa. And shooting of this film actually took place during the winter in New York, and it was bitterly cold that year when this one took place. Cameras were literally freezing, and a person who lived in a nearby apartment area actually would allow for people to come, for the people working on the film to come and stay in her house and get warmed up during when they weren't actually being used in the scene or having to work. As thanks for it, one of the actresses actually took the person out to, took him out to a real fancy restaurant during that time, and the woman, the host, happened to be so excited that the only thing she could order was a glass of milk. And this film actually came really close to being heavily edited from what we saw of it, because the stores Macy's and Gimbel's that are both featured in this movie were approached before the filming of getting permission to use them so that they wouldn't be in trouble later on. Well, Macy's and Gimbel's both agreed that they wanted to see the final product before they would decide whether they'd allow their stores to be used in the movie. After the movie was made, they saw the finished product before it was test audienced and actually put into theaters, and they liked it and agreed that the stores could be used in the filming. A note of how bad things used to be: this film actually got a B rating due to the morally objectionable content in it, because Maureen O'Hara's character in this movie is a divorced woman in the 40s. Alvin Greenman, who played Alfred in this movie, was the last surviving member of the movie. Anybody that was in the having to do with the movie, and he died on July 14th, 2016, at 86 years old. Gwen, who actually played the Santa character in this, improvised the reaction to Natalie Wood's character pulling the beard that's actually become very famous with the movie and well known for that particular scene. He improvised that so Natalie would actually be surprised in her reaction, and it would be genuine and not something staged that they pulled out. Something I didn't know is that during the 70s, Wagner and Wood were approached to do a remake of the movie, with Natalie Wood's daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, playing Susan. Wood turned it down because she had been a child actor and she didn't want her daughter to start at such a young age, worried of how it would affect her, and wanted to actually have somewhat of a normal life before she got into Hollywood. Number 8, from 1965, a special on CBS, The Charlie Brown Christmas. This one was about Charlie Brown's having feelings during this time where he can't decide while everybody else is looking forward to Christmas, getting presents, things like that, he's realized that everybody's losing what the real meaning of Christmas was and how it's hurt them so much. I mean, how he's feeling lost during this time, wondering if it even really matters anymore. And this is pretty much what the whole special is about. First of all, this was the first of the animated Peanuts specials that were made. Also, it broke the traditional rules of animated holiday specials during the 60s. By not having a laugh track, it used real children to do the voice of the characters in the special, and biblical references were used to illustrate the true meaning of Christmas, as well as it actually had a real such a blatant message in it. Kathy Steinberg, the one who plays Charlie Brown's younger sister in this movie, Sally, hadn't learned to read yet, and she actually had to have somebody read her lines, and which is why the line in the movie, it goes, "All I want is what I have coming to me. All I want is my fair share," seems somewhat choppy according to people, but it's why it seems off when she speaks this line in the movie. Something I didn't know, and I looked in a bunch of places to confirm this, and it actually shows up during this. I mean, during a lot of things. And with the number on them it shows, and I think one of them actually even had it dated from where it actually showed this. But CBS executives actually hated the special originally due to its blatant message, the objection to no canned laughter or the laugh track, and also the fact that they used Vince Guaraldi's, I'm probably saying that wrong and I apologize, but his jazz score was seen to them as an intrusion which audiences wouldn't appreciate. However, after they saw the reviews and the ratings for this, which were really high and well liked, the CBS execs did a complete 180 and immediately contacted the producers and put them on a contract to make more specials. A rumor I found, and again, it's the only reason I listed as rumors because I can't find it in multiple places that can try and confirm this. I only found it in one, is that the band Jefferson Airplane, also known as Jefferson Starship, and many other names they had, but this time they were known as Jefferson Airplane, all wanted autographs from the kids who voiced the children in this special because they were actually fans of the special as well as the Peanuts comics strip. Something I didn't know, but it does explain it, is that Tracy Stratford, the voice of Lucy in this film, this special, only did it for this special, as her voice would, what they refer to as, break shortly after, which I'm not sure if that meant that she actually messed up her voice, or if it actually, she hit like a puberty stage and actually was going through that change in her voice. But that's why she only voiced this role for the one special, and afterwards they got a different actress to do it. And when it premiered in 1965, the Charlie Brown Christmas was watched by 15 million people, according to the ratings and reviews on it. Okay, number 7 from 1994, Tim Allen's movie, The Santa Claus. The reason why, to me, this one isn't just a movie that takes place at Christmas, but is actually a Christmas movie, is because when it starts out, you got a man who's too busy for his son, and over time of the movie, he learns the importance of what matters to him, which is family and traditions, things like that. And again, the importance of the child's belief comes into question. This, which again made me think of the Never-Ending Story. At the same time, something of note about this is that the main actor in this, Tim Allen, who plays Santa Claus, or Scott Calvin, during 1 month in November of '94, had 3 number ones going. Number 1 movie, which was Santa Claus. Number 1 TV show, Home Improvement. And the number 1 book, Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man. Which I'm hoping is actually a very funny book. Maybe some of his stand-up routines or the history of his life as a comedian. Because otherwise it just sounds really weird. And an obvious thing to say. Also, I don't know if this policy has changed over time, but at the time this film happened, Disney had a policy, no hiring ex-cons. But they made an exception in Tim Allen's case, as he did have a criminal record. But they granted him an exception and let him play Scott Calvin in this movie. And this was actually the first lead role in a film for Tim Allen. During a scene in the film, there's actually a reference to the Home Improvement TV show, as Tim Allen's character puts on a tool belt and shakes his head, stating, "Not for me." In the show Home Improvement, Tim Allen's character is a man who does a TV show about tools and as the show states, Home Improvement. Though the character tends to do a lot of things generally wrong and make mishaps happen, which is really funny. But the main idea of his role on the show is to sell tools for the show he works for. The original choice and Tim Allen wasn't even the first choice for Scott Calvin, or the 3rd or 5th. When the movie was originally thought up, the role was originally offered to Bill Murray, but he turned it down, stating it wasn't suited to his sense of humor, or to his type of humor, so he turned it down. And it was also offered to Chevy Chase and many others, but they turned it down also because of either scheduling conflicts or they didn't think it suited them. And my mother actually watched an interview about this movie where it states that one of the actors who was offered turned it down because they didn't believe that the movie was going to do well. But Tim Allen eventually got offered the role, which to me states that the hiring of ex-cons policy was waived because they really didn't have anybody else to do the role, which is kind of sad to think of with Tim Allen for as funny as he is. Also, during the movie, there's a dance montage that Tim Allen does before the next Christmas Eve. He completely improvised it, and the director kept it in the film because he thought it was actually a good thing to have in it, because it was such a good little improv done in it. Also, according to the Making of TV series, when they did this movie, when they did the making of it for this, they found out that Tim Allen would often be angry at times due to the fact that they were shooting in. It's questioned whether, because this actually had a slash mark between it, so it makes me question as if they were saying this were the same things or if they were different. To me, they're different things. On one side of the slash, it said it's a low vented system building, and on the other side of it, it said a non-air conditioned building, which means either way, this place was extremely hot. And when he went into full Santa mode, putting on the beard, the prosthetics, the fat suit, they had to take constant breaks because Tim Allen was getting overheated. And there were times Tim Allen would actually forget that there were children playing the elves and would actually start swearing, cursing, however you look at it. Start saying very bad words that children shouldn't have been hearing. Number 6 on the list, an ABC Family or Freeform movie that I saw when it came out was Holiday in Handcuffs, starring Melissa Joan Hart and Mario Lopez. The idea of this movie, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, the Santa Claus is where Tim Allen's character, like I said, he becomes too busy, basically spending time with his son, and forgets what Christmas is about. And then he accidentally kills Santa Claus one night when he finds him on the roof and yells at him. Well, he ends up putting on the suit, which activates what's known as the Santa Claus. Nice little play on words with the movie there. Where it's saying that by putting on the suit, he's agreed to become Santa Claus. But anyways, now back to my number 6 on the list, Holiday in Handcuffs. And this one, it was a movie about a girl whose life hadn't gone the way she wanted, and her boyfriend breaks up with her before Christmas. So he decides. When she's been told that she needs to go home to visit her family for the holidays, she knows how judgmental they are and doesn't want to do it. But she decides to go, but she's going to have a boyfriend there, whether it's the one she wanted or not. And she ends up kidnapping Mario Lopez's character and literally handcuffing him. And hence the name Holiday in Handcuffs. Basically kidnapping and holding him prisoner through the movie, only for Mario's character to realize, and for her to realize, while she realizes what she did was wrong and knows it, he comes to realize how hard her life actually was and why this was important to her. And it's not one of those where it's a couple idea, where it's more Valentine's style, but it's got a good Christmas feeling to it for family. And this one actually reminded me of the Dennis Leary movie, The Ref, in a lot of ways, only not as extreme as The Ref was, which is really funny also. And this movie was actually the most viewed in the broadcast history of ABC Family Freeform, as it's now known, with 6.7 million viewers and adults from 18 to 49. Getting a 2.4 rating. Not sure what the 2.4 rating actually means, but for it to have that many viewers for an ABC special type deal shows that it was actually really good. And that people are probably looking forward to the fact that Melissa Joan Hart and Mario Lopez were actually acting, and a lot of kids who are now adults, kids in the 90s, would remember these people, as Melissa Joan Hart was known for being Sabrina, and Clarissa from Clarissa Explains It All. Sabrina on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, part of the TGIF lineup. And then Mario Lopez, most people would remember as being AC Slater from the Saved by the Bell franchise. In the movie, Trudy, who is played by Melissa Joan Hart, kind of felt sorry for the name Trudy as a name, by the way, but her car in this movie is a 64 Mercury Marauder. I found it interesting that somebody actually knew what the car was, because I just knew it was an old car. And interesting about this movie also is the fact that it was the subject of an episode of the series, How Did This Get Made? Which, to some extent, I can see their point of questioning this, because the movie isn't all that great, but it wasn't all that bad either. So, I can go either way for why they would ask that question. But overall, I think it was good that it got made, because as the viewership showed, it was a really good movie. Overall. Number 5 on my list, from 1992, The Muppet Christmas Carol, starring Michael Caine as Scrooge. Most would know Michael Caine from the Dark Knight trilogy, or Batman Begins trilogy, where he played Alfred. Though they may know him from other things, but That's the first thing I thought of when I saw the name and the face. But in this movie, he actually plays Scrooge. The voice actor for Miss Piggy, something I didn't know, was the same person who did the voice for for Fozzie Bear and Animal, as well as Yoda in the Star Wars series. In the Star Wars movies, Frank Oz. I just found that interesting because you listen to each of the voices, totally different from the Miss Piggy voice. And as I stated, Michael Caine, who plays Scrooge in the movie, was Alfred in the Batman Begins. And Batman Begins, Dark Knight trilogy, actually considers this to be one of his most memorable roles. Brian Henson, who's actually related to Jim Henson, I think it's actually his son, he's the director and producer of this movie. He chose Gonzo and Rizzo the Riot. He chose Gonzo, the amazing Gonzo. Big blue Muppet with the big nose that some would say probably looks like something inappropriate. Some adults would anyways, probably. And also Rizzo the Rat to narrate the film because he wanted to incorporate the prose and narration of the original novel, which did the same thing. Also, this is the first major Muppet project after Jim Henson's death. In the commentary, the creators actually tell a funny story where after some children saw the movie, they asked what the bookkeepers did wrong in order to get coal. The reason why they considered this funny is because when they were making the movie, the people who worked in it actually forgot that one of the traditions that goes with the story of Santa Claus is that he gives children who are bad coal in their stockings as Christmas instead of actual Christmas presents. This had actually slipped their minds, and they didn't realize that until the children asked later on. Also, Caine was impressed with Brian Henson's ability to direct this movie, as halfway through production, Caine realized this was actually Brian Henson's directorial debut. And the only reason this movie did modest in theaters, which I actually agree with on why, sadly, and also feel kind of bad for, is that its competition that year was Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, of which more people went and saw, so not as many saw this one, which is sad, because this one, I think, would have been a better option, given how much of a rip-off Home Alone 2 was, basically. This is also the first Muppet movie where Kermit was not the lead person in the movie. It wouldn't be the only one, but it was the first one. Also, the book has only one Marley in it who's a ghost, Jacob Marley. I think that's what his name was Jacob Marley in the book. But in the movie, they created a second one because they wanted Statler and Waldorf, two guys known for heckling the characters on from the TV show, The Muppet Show. Go back and watch it, kids. If you haven't seen it, you can look it up on YouTube and find these two characters, Statler and Waldorf. They're two old guy puppets who basically mock everybody. Well, with this movie, they created a second Marley in it so that it would be Statler and Waldorf that played them. Also, something that was unknown at the time, to a lot of people, that the three ghosts that were picked to play the ghosts in this movie were not the original ideas. The original idea was actually to have Rizzo the Rat as the Ghost of Christmas Past, Miss Piggy as the Ghost of Christmas Present, and Gonzo, though you would only see his nose sticking out of the hood, as the Ghost of Christmas Future. But along the way, they changed their minds and instead made Gonzo and Rizzo the narrators and made Miss Piggy the wife to Kermit in the movie, as Mrs. Cratchit. Number 4, from 1994, Dennis Leary's movie, The Ref. In this movie, you get a criminal who's committed a robbery on Christmas, and he decides to hide out at this family's house until it's safe, because his plan is to get to the marina, and him and a friend are going to book it to the islands or somewhere so that the cops can't find them, and they're going to lay low there until it's safe to come back. But he ends up getting trapped in this house as the family, as the people who own the house, the father's side of the family is coming over, and he gets to see how bad their life actually is and how terrible, and to some extent, how lucky he actually is. But at the same time, he also gets to see the tragedy that is this family, as the family is each having their own problems in some way. And this one is more of a comedy that takes place at Christmas, but it does have the qualities of Christmas, such as showing the matter of family in it and the concern and love that needs to be shown to be a Christmas movie tradition. But again, it's Dennis Leary, so the fact that it's a comedy is actually almost a given. There's a line in the movie Dennis Leary quotes as saying, "Lady, your husband ain't dead, he's hiding." Turns out, this is something I didn't know, because I thought it was just a funny line that was thrown into the movie. This is actually a direct quote from an Abbott and Costello sketch. And I'm probably going to butcher this, so I'm sorry in advance. The Susquehanna Hat Company. Again, I'm mispronouncing that. I know I am, and I'm sorry, but it's this, I don't know how to pronounce the first name, Hat Company. You can probably find it on YouTube. But he actually states this line, and it turns out this line was actually used in it, which surprised me. I did not know this. On July 16th, 2012, this movie actually appeared in Entertainment Weekly. On June 16th, 2012. As I stated, in Entertainment Weekly, this movie was listed among the 50 best movies you've never seen. Which really, I can't blame them, because a lot of people probably didn't see it, thinking it was just going to be something they threw out. But if you actually watch it, it's actually really enjoyable. When it was released in the United Kingdom, it was originally aired under a different name called Hostile Hostages. Or Hostile Hostages. I'm not sure which way to say that correctly. But I'm going with Hostile Hostages. And the grandmother in this movie actually reminded me of the soap opera General Hospital with its character of Helena Cassadine, because she's ruthless, controlling, very manipulative, and likes to torture people, basically, without actually doing them any physical damage. She'll mentally scar them in some way. While I was a fan of this movie, one of the reasons I was a fan of it is because the woman who played the grandmother did the role so well, that I was actually all for killing the grandmother in this movie. Despite the fact that they don't. I'll just say that now, so don't worry. But it had you where you wanted to vote for the killing of the grandmother, and nobody would care. That they would all keep it a secret. Also, the director of this movie, Ted Demme, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Demme. He changed the ending due to a screening he did where audiences, with a test audience, that gave negative reactions to the ending. But afterwards, he stated that he does regret changing, or that he has regretted changing it from the original ending he had, as the original ending fit better with the movie's idea and what it was trying to show. Number 3, from 1966, Boris Karloff animated movie, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. One thing about this movie I didn't know is that Thurl Ravencroft, known best for being Tony the Tiger during this time, was chosen to sing the songs because his voice. He was chosen to sing at least one song in it because his voice was so deep, being, according to them, it's listed as being a baritone or a bass. But because it was so deep, it actually worked for the role. It actually worked for what they were needing it for. So they chose him to sing. Also, and this actually kind of surprised me, Dr. Seuss was actually against Boris Karloff being the Grinch originally because he thought Karloff would make the Grinch too scary of a role for children. The lyrics to all the songs in this little special or movie, however you want to look at it, Dr. Seuss actually wrote all the lyrics for every song in it. And in the movie, or the animated special, however you look at it, like I said, Ravencroft gets no credit for his singing in it, in the credits at all. Though Seuss did try to rectify the situation, as he sent letters to every major columnist in America identifying Ravencroft as the singer behind You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. He also did a part as the chorus. He was also a part of the chorus for 2 other songs in the movie. In it. Something I did find interesting, and almost a way to mock, in a way, is that this film came out 3 days after Walt Disney died. On December 15th, 1966. Now, I'm not sure if that was stating that that's when the film came out, or if that's when Boris Karloff died. I mean, not Boris Karloff, but Walt Disney died. But either way, the fact that it came out 3 days after Walt Disney's death, I kind of find interesting, because this, to me, is one of the greatest animated things ever done. For that, and it was so good, and to know that Walt Disney actually couldn't do it was even better. And and this was a real interesting fact that I found. Boris Karloff is the only British actor to play the Grinch until Benedict Cumberbatch did it in the 2018 animated film. Until the 2018 version of the movie, which is 52 years later. Number 2 on my list of Christmas movies, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, starring Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Juliette Lewis, and Johnny Galecki. During this film, there's a scene in it where Chevy Chase's character, Clark, is actually trying, and Clark Griswold, this is back to the Griswold family doing another vacation movie. Well, the thing is, during this one, this is the only vacation movie, this was the 3rd in the National Lampoon's Vacation movie, but what's interesting is, this was actually the first Lampoon, if you go back to the National Lampoon's magazine, this was actually the first one that they published in the stories of the Vacation series. And that had to do with the Vacation series. But, again, during the film, Chevy Chase's character of Clark Griswold got this nice house, and he's actually put lights up all over it. Basically, you can see this thing from space when it lights up, essentially. Well, the thing is that during the scene, when he first tries to plug in the lights, they don't work. They don't light up. And he's saying it's a blown bulb, something like that. He's trying to figure out why. Well, he gets angry eventually. And he's supposed to go over and do some punching and beating up the Christmas decorations. Well, when Chevy went to do this, he actually broke his pinky during it. And during the scenes where he's beating up the decorations. And from then on, he just went straight to like a punching and kicking motion for it and started like choking one of them because he couldn't punch it anymore because he broke his pinky. Also, something I didn't remember being in the movie until I recently went back and watched it. The character of Rusty, Clark's son, actually says we should have gone to Hawaii. Well, in itself, Islam wouldn't be as special if you hadn't seen any of the Lampoon movies. Well, in the original Vacation movie, they're asked where would be a great place to go. Rusty's answer is actually Hawaii in it. Also, something that's interesting is that the people who play the daughter and the son in this movie are Juliette Lewis playing Audrey and Johnny Galecki playing Rusty. Well, these two, while they played brother and sister in this movie, would later go on to Roseanne, a show Johnny Galecki was actually well known for, as being David, and they would be lover. They'd actually become a couple in the TV series of The Connors, which I found interesting because it shows how good they work together. For those who don't know, Juliette Lewis was also known for being the girl in Dusk Till Dawn. If you watch, I think it's called Old School, where it's got Will Ferrell and Vince Vaughn, and I forget the other guy's name, but where they basically start up a frat at a school in order to keep the house. Juliette Lewis is actually in that movie as well. But anyways, like I said, Johnny Galecki, most people would remember, most adults would remember for being David on Roseanne and on The Connors. But most kids now, or teenagers, or maybe even college students, would remember him better as being Leonard Hofstadter on The Big Bang Theory. Also, this is the only Vacation movie where the Griswolds do not travel anywhere, do not travel to somewhere, other than the scene where they're going to get the tree from the forest. And it's also the only one that Holiday Road is not the song Holiday Road by Lindsey Buckingham is not played. Also, another interesting fact, if you watch the movies, Christmas, the original, and Vegas, the Griswold's name is spelled with an A. If you watch European Vacation, the Griswold name is spelled with a double O. It's spelled with two O's instead of an O and an A. Also, the opening theme and opening credits for this movie, for Christmas Vacation, are among my favorites for the opening credits because just the way they do things. They show so many things going wrong in a funny way, and how Santa is delivering these toys to this house. And like I said, and how everything goes wrong. And it just makes it funny for an opening. And I viewed it, like I said, to me, it's one of the best openings they have. Number one on my list of favorite top 10 Christmas movies, Scrooged from 1988. Another version, yes, I seem to have a thing for Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. But this one's another one that does it, where it uses Bill Murray as a version of Scrooge. Also stars Bobcat Goldthwait. I forget who else I want to say. Sorry. I forget their names now. But anyways, this movie is actually nominated for an Oscar for the best makeup for the way the characters were done in it. I'm going to give you a partial spoiler in this. There's a Christmas present grabbed. There's a... Not Christmas present. Sorry, I misphrased that. There's a scene in the movie where the ghost of Christmas Present, played by Carol Kane, grabs Bill Murray's lip and pulls on it. Well, apparently, she pulled too hard at one point and accidentally tore his lip. And filming had to be stopped for a number of days for it to heal. And something I didn't realize is that all of Bill Murray's brothers who were acting at this time were in the movie. And his youngest brother, John Murray, or his younger brother, I'm not sure if it's his youngest or not, but John Murray, who's his younger brother, actually played the on-screen brother in this film. This was also Bill Murray's first lead role since the original Ghostbusters movie in '84. During this time, he'd taken time off to live in Paris and actually considered to stop acting. Actually considered the idea of not acting anymore for the rest of his life. Something I didn't know, though, something that really surprised me, is that Sam Kinison, a comedian who's often seen with Rodney Dangerfield and is known for screaming in his comedy routines, as well as, if you've seen the movie Back to School, which I highly suggest for just a regular comedy to watch. He's a teacher in it, but he's known for he screams in it as well. Well, he was the original idea for the role of Christmas Past, but instead the role went to David Johansen, a man who was known to have a friendship with Bill Murray. No, I'm not stating that he got this role because of Bill Murray, or even suggesting it, as I actually think he probably did get it on his own, but the fact that he had a friendship with Bill Murray shows that he could play the role, and that they could get along well enough. This is another film where Bill Murray ad-libbed most of his lines, and this was actually stated by the director, Richard Donner, in an interview that he gave. Also, the ghost of Christmas Present was played by Carol Kane. The actress would go on later to play Grandma Addams in the Addams Family Values movie that was made, the second in the Addams Family movies made in the 90s, which starred Angelica Houston. Also, during the movie, and one of the reasons I found this important, is that during the movie, when Christmas Present's taking him to see his brother, he finds him playing a game in which it asks, on the Addams Family, what instrument did Lurch play? I actually missed this because I misquoted the instrument. I had the right idea, just the wrong instrument in mind. And it's the harpsichord. But another question they asked is actually a reference to the director. They asked the name of the boat that took them all to Gilligan's Island, and nobody could get it in the film. The reason why this question is actually a reference to the director is because the director actually worked on Gilligan's Island as one of the crew members to it. I don't remember if he was actually a writer or an assistant director or what, but he did have something to do with the show. And another interesting fact, during the movie, it has Carol Kane during the whole time the Ghost of Christmas Present is beating up on Bill Murray. According to the things I could find, and this is actually listed in more than one area, so that's why I think it has some validity to it. Carol Kane actually hated the fact that she's beating up on Bill Murray during the filming, because she thought he was a great actor and thought it was wrong for her to do it. And another thing is that during the film, she actually hits him with a toaster at one point. And the line and Bill Murray's line to this is, I can't believe the B word, hit me with a toaster. He actually says it. I'm actually saying it that way so that this doesn't have the H restriction to it. But it says the B word, hit me with a toaster. It says if the gloves are off, come on. Really funny line, and if you watch it, you can probably find it on YouTube for that scene specifically. It's actually really funny for that reason in the way it's done. But Carol Kane's character for the Ghost of Christmas Present pretty much beats the crap out of him the whole time that they're doing it, the whole time she's on screen. He'll say something, she'll slap him, kick him. Even did a couple of other things that are not so nice as that. Also, it's revealed during the movie that Bill Murray's character, who they know is Frank Cross, his real name is actually Francis Xavier Cross, which to me makes it seem like Bill Murray's character, even though this may seem like I'm being stereotypical, I'm not trying to be. I'm stating it from what I've seen used in movies and TV shows and interviews, that with Bill Murray's name being Francis Xavier Cross, seems like he would have came from an Irish Catholic family in the movie. And for my final interesting fact, the movie was released 145 years after Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol was released. That I actually find really interesting because this movie is basically a comedic version of it and done really well. Also, another interesting fact, they actually originally questioned the idea of making A Christmas Carol into a comedy because they weren't sure that fans would react to it positively. And the film actually did really well for it. So, leave a comment telling me what your favorite Christmas movie is and why. And also, what you would like for me to do for a future video. Like I said, as I've stated, I actually read the comments to see if anybody actually leaves these comments to help me out. Also, check out a friend of mine's video, a little channel, Chris Lynch. Check out his video channel because he's recently started up and getting ready to add movies to it. His own videos to it. Starting from what I understand was soap rewrites and how he would have done them. So feel free to check that out also. And like I said, leave a comment leave a comment stating what your favorite Christmas movie is, along with why. Because I'm actually curious. And I'll see you for my next video.